Hello, hello, welcome. This is Anisa Aven, and thank you for joining our the business case for outplacement services. Not exactly an exciting topic, but a topic that's very timely nevertheless. And so today we're going to talk about right-sizing your business the right way and how that will yield positive results. Just to get started pretty quick, we're going to talk a little bit today about the ROI of outplacement. We're going to talk about the statistics related to how and why it produces higher productivity for those retained employees. We're going to talk about mitigating litigation, which unfortunately is the truth of one of the reasons why outplacement is important. We're going to talk about improving profitability. We're going to talk about a stronger market price, or at least I don't know if we'll have time to get into that in our conversation today, but outplacement services really strengthen an employer's brand, which in turn increases the standing in the marketplace. We're going to talk about improving greater and having greater employee loyalty, increased productivity, same thing there, reduced turnover, improved engagement, etc. So I am going to pause for a moment, and I just want to introduce our experts today. My name is Anisa Aven, and I'm the CEO of TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. And with us today, we have Wendy Carrick, our VP of People. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, Anisa.
And we have Mauri Schwartz. Hello.
Hi, Anisa.
Our expert career coach and outplacement specialist. So will you two introduce yourselves and share with us a little bit about the conversation we're going to have today?
I'll go ahead. I'm Mauri Schwartz. I'm President and CEO of Career Insiders. Career Insiders provides outplacement services and job seeker services, other types of career management services, including recruiting and executive branding. And the topic of outplacement is really, it's something I've been working with for quite a while. And given all the layoffs that have happened because of COVID, it's something that we all need to be thinking about. So I'd like for companies to understand how important it is for them to provide those services and how they can do it without breaking the bank. So it's important to their bottom line. It's important to their brand, which comes back to the bottom line and the top line. Frankly, I can talk a little bit about how it affects the top line as well as the bottom line, and how so it's not just the right thing to do, although it is the right thing to do. And we'll get into some details on that. I work with companies who are laying off employees, either one or two hires who didn't work out, or sometimes they're relocating a department and people don't want to move, so they're providing an easy exit for those people. It could be that they need to downsize, like what's happening now. They just can't keep all those employees. So those are some of the reasons that that companies have to terminate. It's not just always downsizing. It could be a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
Great.
sure.
And I'm Wendy Carrick, as Anisa mentioned, VP of People here at TurnKey Consulting. And my experience really with outsourcing is in my corporate experience. I've been through plenty of them, both in kind of strategic planning, organizing, but what's near and dear to my heart really is the impact it has on people. So my hope always and my passion for outsourcing really is around making sure that people have what they need to succeed when they go. I understand that the company, and make the company whole too, right? At the end, make sure that their brand is good. But my real effort and passion is to make sure people have what they need to succeed when they go somewhere else. And so that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I would love to give us a little bit of framework around some of the conversation that we're going to have today. We know that with every dispersed employee, there are direct and indirect costs. And Mauri and Wendy and I have had some deep dialogue around there's some predictable direct and indirect costs. And the four areas that are really quantifiable are these areas around, we know that state unemployment taxes are impacted by laid off employees. We know that legal and litigation expenses are predictable and they're quantifiable depending on the size of an organization and the number of laid off dispersed workers. We know that there's very specific and quantifiable reputation costs. And we know that there's an impact on the retained workforce. So Mauri, share with us, where, if we were to start with the most important piece of this dialogue, what is that?
Oh, well, I'll in a way, I'll refer back to what Wendy said about, taking care of employees. But from a financial management point of view, I think that the most important aspect is, well, they're all important. I mean, they really are. But I think, the cost is important. The brand is important because I'll go back to what I said about the top line being affected. The way a company treats its employees before, during, and after employment really it affects their reputation. A lot of companies, a lot of HR managers it took them a long time, frankly, to understand that candidate experience was important in the hiring process. There were so many companies that just didn't treat candidates during the recruitment process with respect. And but now you will look at all of these companies, they're all stressing candidate engagement and making it a good experience. Well, that's coming in the door. And then obviously you want to treat your employees well while they're in your company, because you want them to be motivated and contribute. So you want to attract them, you want to contribute, you want them to be good workers. And then but don't forget about the tail end, because if there's any circumstance where you have to lay off one or more employees, the way they leave and the way you treat them when they leave will stick with you forever. I mean, it's like there's a big, very large, major global corporation that we all know, and they were known for years with not treating their employees well. And I have friends who still they've corrected a lot of that over the years. They were sued, they made some changes in policies, and yet I still know a lot of people who will not shop there. And okay, so they're individuals, but it does affect their top line because it's affected their reputation and their brand, and they can't get past it. So that's the treating on the while they're employees for the most part in hiring. But the same thing goes for at the end of the cycle, because you want employees to know that there was good reason for you to need to lay them off, whether it was because you had to downsize, whether it's because you're moving a division or a department to another geographic location, or whether their job just doesn't work out. Maybe your talent needs changed and there's not a room for that person. So they need to understand why, and you have to be straightforward with them, transparent, and then you also have to provide them with an easy way out. Help them on the way out. Help them leave you feeling good about, okay, well, it didn't work out, but I'm not bitter, I'm not angry. They have helped me get a new job. And so, the more quickly those laid off employees find new opportunities, then the less you need to worry about how the negative things they're going to say about you. And again, that can affect your top line as well as your bottom line, because the bottom line is, you could be, the cost factor is if they're bitter, then there's the lawsuit, which you have referred to, Anisa. There's some legal risks in that. But it also affects the top line, because depending on the type of products and services you sell, that reputation, especially with social media multiplying and things going viral, people won't buy your products and services because of something that the way you've treated someone and the information they've spread about you. And some of it might not even be true. But if they've left and they're bitter, then that's really going to affect, how they feel about you and what they say to other people. And that affects not only the products and services, but your hiring. So you may have to lay people off and still be hiring because of your needs change. Or you may be downsizing now, but you're going to want to hire again. Well, it's going to be, employees or potential candidates are really concerned about how the company treat employees and whether they're known for being good to employees. And if you're known for being bad, then it's just it's just not going to happen. If you're known for treating your employees well, then you're going to be a place where people want to come work.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on that, and I'm going to show folks, because part of our conversation today is about making the business case. And what we know is that all of us, if we're responsible for taking care of our employees, if we're in HR, part of our job is also to be strategic about the decisions we make. So we have to back up the decisions we make with the data, with the statistics. And so I know that we've been asked by a number of our clients to share in those statistics, to share in the numbers. And we even went so far as to create an ROI calculator. So I'm going to share my screen for just a minute and just want Wendy and Mauri, you guys to, I'm going to read it off, and then you guys share with me your business experience around why this matters. So first, Better Team Blog 2017 reported on a study. 50% of candidates say they wouldn't work for a company with a bad reputation, even for a pay increase, which I think oftentimes is very different than common belief that, oh, it's just about the money. If we can just pay them enough money, we'll attract the right candidates. This is another survey, Gallup State of the American Workplace, also a 2017 study, showed that 36% of employees say a company's market reputation is very important when considering a new job. This one is from Corporate Responsibility magazine. A study said that 92% would consider leaving their current job if offered another role with a company that had an excellent corporate reputation. So all of those pieces play into what you just, talked about related to, it's not just about now, it's about when things stabilize. And I know you for sure, Wendy, have had that experience with hiring and having to recruit new candidates and whether or not they're interested in the company specifically because of the reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, when it comes to layoffs, what's that saying that people use? It's not as much what you say, but how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. I think that outplacement is you can have all the benefits, you can try to attract, you can have the best product in the world. But if people leave feeling like you haven't taken care of them, that in the end will impact your brand. And to your point, Anisa, when you're looking for another job, I know I personally, when I have looked for a job and I've known that the reputation hasn't been stellar, they haven't treated their people. Everybody says they treat their people right. But when I do my research and I look and I'm looking for that job and I see anything about they didn't take care of their people when they laid them off, that's a real downturn. And I've actually had candidates just say, the reputation of this company may not be for me when I've been doing recruiting as well. So it really does impact the reputation of a company, and it will dictate whether you get the best candidates or your mediocre candidates or the worst candidates.
Yeah.
And I'll, ditto that because I'm working with a lot of job seekers now through Outplacement and individual clients, and they, even at this time when, all of the recruiting and the hiring has slowed down, much of it is frozen. But, some companies are still hiring, even though it's moving more slowly, but, and some of my clients, they're still working, but a lot of them have been laid off, and they're, while they need to get a job, they're very adamant about not going to a company that has a bad reputation. They go because if they've gotten laid off once, they don't want to get laid off again and not be treated well. So if it's more important. And not only is it more important than the money, I mean, these people, may not be having, they're on unemployment or something now, or they just, they've been laid off recently and they want to get back to work quickly, but they're not going to accept a job just for the money to go to a company that has a bad reputation. I get that. And I also, in my recruiting days, that I've worked with candidates for that I've been trying to recruit for clients of mine. And they, of course, I generally don't take on recruiting projects for companies with a bad reputation, but, sometimes I don't figure it out soon enough. And they haven't gone, or sometimes there's been an issue a reputation issue that's not true, that's false. So, that falls on the recruiting team to correct that. But, it's hard to turn those things around. And with Glassdoor and social, media like that, it's, even though you need to take what people say in Glassdoor with a grain of salt, because mostly it's the complainers who post, it's still a place where you can get trashed, your company can get trashed, and you can sometimes never recover, or you have to work really hard to recover from that. So, and people, the other thing about money as a motivator for candidates, they are very interested in what a salary and a compensation package is. But if you talk to people, they don't leave companies just because of the money.
Yeah.
They leave companies because of they're not happy with their management. They're not happy with their skills not being used to their full potential. It's mostly, it's not about the money. Even though they might have gotten more money going to another company.
Yeah. You mentioned Glassdoor, and I didn't print this particular study, but given the age of our workforce, what we know is millennials and Generation Z, they won't eat at a restaurant that doesn't have an appropriate number of stars, let alone go work for an employer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to keep that in mind. So even though we, as business owners, we can't necessarily control what happens with the complainers, managing that to the best of our abilities has to be one of our strategic priorities.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can't create a perfect situation, no matter how you try, but how hard you try. But back to Wendy's point, treating your employees is treating yourself well, is really gonna, bring back benefits to the company all the way through the process, again, from the first point of contact in the recruitment cycle to the last point of contact when they have to be laid off, or if they exit on their own.
Well, let's talk for a moment about, just that first piece of layoffs. It's about, or outplacement, right? It's about being compassionate. It's about ensuring employees have a certain amount of stability as they're laid off. And so even if an organization does their outplacement program internally, there are certain steps within that phase one that demonstrates that a company cares about their employees' basic needs, and ensuring that they are on stable footing in spite of the change. And what those look like are ensuring that the dispersed workforce have information about applying for unemployment, about the financial aspects of unemployment, tax refunds, deferment. So all of what you're looking at here is something that a good outplacement program should have, whether that's through resources, webinars, online courses, or one-on-one job coaching. Our particular program has all three of those: one-on-one coaching, one-on-one career coaching. The first was one-on-one job coaching, one-on-one career coaching, webinars, and an online resource tool with every single module and learning experience that an employee may need to learn. We just got off a call before this with a client, and she got out of college, went to work for a retail organization, and has been there for 30 years. She's now a senior member of the team. She's never worked for anywhere else. And the entire organization of, I think it's 80,000 employees, they're closing up shop. That's it. Closing the doors, no more. So she hasn't even had a resume in 30 years, senior leader. So for her, this stability piece is really, really critical. And in that way, how an organization leaves their departed employees and leaves that relationship, this is where I want you guys to weigh in next, is about the voluntary turnover that happens inside an organization after the dispersed workforce. There's a lot of studies out there. There's some estimates that have shown that voluntary turnover costs are somewhere between 33% and 200% of each lost employee's salary. And, traditionally, Even beyond this current situation, we know that voluntary turnover costs companies more than $600 billion a year. But what is really interesting right now is that when an organization downsizes a workforce by even 1%, it leads to a 31% increase in turnover in involuntary, sorry, that's a typo. No, it isn't. Increase in, there's just not enough of a space there. Increase in voluntary turnover in the next 12 months. The piece about that I find so interesting is that this isn't, if an organization has a 19% turnover, we're talking about a 31% increase in that 19% to XYZ, right? We're not talking about 31% overall. So what that means is if an organization can anticipate a 31% increase in their voluntary turnover rates for every 1%, what does that cost a company? And that's where I'm going to stop sharing. How does a company mitigate that?
Well, I think that the best mitigation is to prevent it. And Wendy, I'll let you contribute also.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mauri.
You know, the mitigation is, you know, risk mitigation, it's risk prevention is really, or incident prevention is really the key here, because those costs, that 31% is enormous in cost. If you figure out how much it costs you to hire a new employee and to train that new employee and have that new employee come up to speed, it's enormous, which is why you know, the numbers you showed, you know, have value. The real issue here is to again, like we've been saying, if you lay off properly, then you know, and really consider, do you need to lay people off? I mean, what is the reason, you know? And if it's a downsizing, did you really need to do that? Were there some other methods that you could take before putting people out of work? But let's say you do, then again, it's really important to do it as smoothly and lay down as an easy path for those people to get work again, because the reason why those voluntary terminations are high are because people are going, well, it could be me next. I'm going to start looking now, because I mean, and I have clients right now, they have their jobs, but they're not sure they're not sure they're stable. So they're beginning to look around. You know, the way you communicate the layoff is also to the rest of your employees is also important.
And the thing I was just going to add to that, you know, when I think about how when I've had to be involved in layoffs, it takes a strain on the leadership. It takes a strain on people that are left. There's a survivor guilt, right? Having an outplacement program really, really helps those people that are having to participate or that are left behind in knowing that their coworkers were taken care of. And that as a leader, you've done everything that you can, even though you had to downsize. So you not only consider the kind of the reputation of the company, the people that you're laying off, but think about those that are left, and those that have to make the decisions, those hard decisions of really disrupting someone's life. Yeah. I know that, you know, being involved in so many layoffs over my career, that helped me to stay, just because I knew people were taking care of them. We just didn't let them out in the cold.
Well, yeah, I think that you're totally right. I don't think you're right. You're right, Wendy. I think also that, you know, again, if you make the choices wisely and in a transparent manner, and show the staying employees, what you plan to do to keep them, then that goes, you know, a long way. Mm-hmm. I have I don't know if this is appropriate time, but I have a terrible, true story about how a company laid off people. If you want to hear it, we can do it now or another time.
Absolutely. You know, because I think that for me, the learning experience is about what organizations are doing that works, and learning from the ones that do things that, oh, maybe we should learn what not to do. Well,
I've heard a lot of stories from my clients about how they get laid off, and it's really, it's really shameful. I mean, most people on the inside, whether it's left to HR or the hiring manager, they just are wimps about the process. So it's like do a breakup between a couple. Whoever wants to break, they just usually, there's this ghosting thing that happens because they're just too wimpy to just say, this isn't working out. And that's exactly what happens in a lot of layoffs. The things that are said, they just want to get it over as quickly as possible, and it really leaves a bad taste in the employee's mouth. But let me tell you, so I worked for a company. This was years ago, and it was actually after I had left the company, but I still had a lot of friends there. And it was a branch office of a global technology company here in San Francisco, and they needed to lay out. The company wasn't doing well, so they started laying people off. And this one day, over the intercom in the office, they called an employee in, and to the manager, the managing partner's office, and she was told that she no longer had her job. So they kept doing that afterwards. They kept calling people through the intercom system, and everybody knew by then. So, because, when the first person comes out, what happened to her, and they're just calling name by name by name. I mean, I was like, just like you guys, you have mouth wide open. I was just going, I'm glad I left the company. I mean, it was already not a place I wanted to work. But then after that, so then what happened is they didn't lay everybody off. They laid off, maybe 10%. And then people just, bolted after that. They just said, okay, I'm out of here. Let me find something else. And as soon as they could get another job, they were gone. And that company doesn't exist today. So, and it was a big company and, very prominent, and it just withered.
Well, I think that's, systemic potentially of other leadership issues, or symptomatic, we could call it, but it demonstrates well what we've been trying to say for those HR folks who are charged with, let's make a strong business case to do this right, and here's how it will impact us down the line. And Wendy, I know you have to take off at here shortly, but I do appreciate you joining us for just a little bit. Thanks for adding your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
I want to say a few things. Pam said earlier something that really resonates with what we've been sharing. Pam said, for instance, even though I'm an office worker, I've decided I wouldn't want to work at Amazon given the negative press they've gotten on how they've treated their workers in the warehouses during COVID, or how they've dismissed employees who have spoken out about those working conditions. And I think, Pam's not alone. We all have a sense of protecting ourselves, and we don't want to put ourselves in that kind of a negative situation. And why would we? There's other places we can find to work.
Well, it's really true, and it's interesting about Amazon because it's treating the warehouse workers badly, and it's got that reputation. But it's hiring people at all other levels. I mean, the company's still growing, and there are a lot of technology jobs there, and I know people who interview there, but somehow they bifurcate the types of roles they have, and they think they're still an attractive place for some other professional role, even though they've been treating their warehouse workers. And people, these days they're getting more and more conscious of and it's nice of what the company does as a whole, what that means. I think like Wendy said, they all say they treat employees well, but do they?
So I want to share again, as we move forward, we're going to talk a little bit about the ROI of outplacement and why it's important in making the business case, but we're also going to talk about what's required for either an internal or externally driven outplacement program. So phase one, all about stability, ensuring that they feel cared for and that there's a right handoff to help them find gainful employment quickly. Phase two is all about the technical side of the job search. So it's about resume writing and cover letter writing and getting letters of recommendation and how to do that. It's in today's age, it's all about being in the place where hiring managers and recruiters are hunting for qualified candidates. And that means optimizing one's LinkedIn profile, which is frankly, much more complicated than making sure it looks like your resume. Much more complicated. You also want to make sure that your employees understand the job boards. And there's, several hundred job boards out there, but there's only some key ones that are the primary ones. They also want to make sure that the employees in a good program understand their strengths. We all know that when an employee understands their strengths, it's a lot easier for them to maximize those strengths, and they'll be more effective in those interviews, talking about themselves and playing to those strengths. So a personality assessment, like a strengths finder or a DISC, or something that just helps them understand their communication style, leadership style, and strengths. Video interviews. Today, most organizations are going to do the first pre-screen via video, and most of us are not real comfortable with, being natural in a video interview. I talked to someone the other day, and the video glitched and they glitched. Next thing they know, they didn't even get through the questions. Well, too bad, so sad. Job's out the window because you failed the video interview. So you want to make sure that they understand how to be effective and show their personality and show their strengths and confidence on camera. The other thing, the next thing, so that's phase 2. I want to talk very quickly. Phase 3 is all about supporting employees in a smart job search, creating a plan, a structure, an approach, and getting organized about it. There's nothing worse than an employee who's been laid off, and in that, I don't know what to do next. I've got this resume, but the garden is calling me. And now 3 weeks later, they're really upset because they haven't found their groove yet. So by setting employees up with a structured approach, with helping them set smart goals, helping them understand how to network for jobs and the importance of a 30-day sprint, just getting out there very quickly and reaching out to your network and making sure that people know, hey, here are my skills, here are my strengths, and I'm available for a job. How to manage those application submissions, how to manage the emotions around the application submission process, how to leverage social media, how to use job search groups, how to be strategic in their job hunt, as well as using that time to look at and dust off their skills. So any program you do, internal or external, those are the first 3 phases of what a good outplacement program would include. Now, Mauri, I want you to weigh in here when we start talking about the litigation costs. I did a little bit of research, and according to the Small Business Administration, there has been a 2,000% increase in wrongful termination lawsuits over the last 20 years. And many estimates show that for every 1% reduction in litigation costs, 1% reduction in litigation costs could save companies upwards of about 60 to 62,000 for every 25 employees that they've laid off. What I find curious about that is, will that apply to today? I mean, the truth is if there were ever a valid time for a business case for laying off employees, it's going to be right now. Many companies are having to shut their doors entirely. What's the prediction here in your mind, Mauri, around will companies have to see this and mitigate the same level of litigation costs as traditional layoffs?
I don't think so, to be honest with you, because I think, depending on all the other factors that go into this, because, if whether it's true for a particular company or not, pointing to the pandemic is like, that's their excuse. So it like I said, it may or may not be justified, but and that's why you hear a lot of rumblings now about companies that have done, laid off employees and used the opportunity as, the pandemic as the excuse to go, okay, well, I wanted to do this anyway. And that's why there is and I'm not sure now if it's just local, but there is a move afoot for employees to I think it's a local law. They're trying to make a local law in San Francisco in the Bay Area that say that companies who've laid off because of COVID, when they start hiring again, if for a certain amount of time, they need to hire back first the people they laid off. And there's, because the complaint is that some of these companies will go out and try to find less expensive employees, or, you know, they might have had someone that needed to be laid off, but they just did it under the cloak of COVID. But what some organization or some laid off employees are seeing is that companies may be choosing to hire other people. And I don't know how in the end the legality of, you know, what there are a lot of pros and cons about it, but it's just something to consider, that, you know, this is not a time to use COVID as an excuse and then go out and hire other people.
Well, and I think that we can also, I read an article, and forgive me, I don't remember the source. No, I'm not sure which online, it's one of the big ones, you know, a Forbes or a Fast Company, something like that. One of the predictions, though, is that what we know about mitigating litigation costs in dispersed workforce is that a certain percentage of people are going to sue, whether for wrongful termination, whether it's valid or not, and that the average cost just to litigate that lawsuit is around $40,000. Now, the average, and these are numbers that that the research has shown, but the average settlement is upwards of $1 million, which is where that $62,000 comes in, somewhere between, you know, $1 million and, you know, $2,000 to litigate. Excuse me, $40,000 to litigate. But what some are predicting is that, similar to what you just said, there will be those who hire back, and those former employees will be like, hey, you just kind of use this as an excuse. I think I was wrongfully terminated. Now I have a case. I think that that's something to consider.
Yeah.
I also think that a lot of folks are going to, and this is some of the articles that I've been reading, are going to consider this as a desperate opportunity. And what I mean by that is there's not going to be as many jobs in the marketplace, potentially. They're going to have a harder time getting employed, and unemployment benefits will run out at some point. And they're going to be looking for a way to feed their family. And so some folks are saying, because of the desperation of what we're in, organizations are going to be very wise to continue and build that relationship and provide outplacement services or compassionate layoffs in order to maintain that relationship long into the future, in order to alleviate the desire for.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Anisa. You're absolutely right. Because people get more frustrated about not being able to find work, they'll look for other reasons. And, you know, if you can file a lawsuit, whether, you know, and whether the company wins or not, it's a lot of money. It's expensive.
Want you to talk a little bit about some of the other costs. We know that outplacement services.
Excuse me, Anisa, I'm so sorry. I'd like to kind of go back, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And basically what I wanted to say is, you know, you put up those numbers, and if I did my math correctly, if you cut back 1% of your litigation costs, you save 60. So that's you know, $6.25 million per 25,000 employees, I guess, if they all sue or something like that, the lawsuit costs. So, but so that's pretty steep. Oh my. The thought just went away again. Oh, I can't believe that. It had to do with, the litigation, and you're feeding attorneys at that point. They're the ones who win on this situation. So I'll come back to it. I apologize. I interrupted you, and then it just like.
Well, I think. Tell me if it comes back, but I think that the point being is that if in some cases there's numbers out there that say 10% of your dispersed workforce in a normal situation are going to attempt a lawsuit, wrongful termination. So even if your numbers are 3%, right? Or 5%, or whatever those numbers are, and an organization can reduce their litigation costs by 1%, that's how,
Mm-hmm.
those are big numbers.
Yes.
And when we started looking at, for anyone that's interested, we have developed an Excel spreadsheet where you can punch in your own numbers, like state unemployment tax, what your particular unemployment tax rate is, and the average cost of a lawsuit, how many employees you're going to disperse, and come up with the savings. And I'm happy to share that Excel spreadsheet so you can look at your own numbers. But in every scenario, we tried to be super conservative because the predicted numbers are so big. Outplacement services are a drop in the bucket compared to even one lawsuit.
That was exactly where I was going with that. Thank you. Thanks, Anisa. That's exactly where I was going to, because, whether, it's the turnkey's packages or the ones that my company offers, I mean, it is just like teeny tiny compared to any one of those losses, the amount of money you'd have to pay even if it's your own internal legal staff, and there are court costs and there are all sorts of other things that happen. And it's just so much easier and so much less expensive to do the right thing, to do something good for someone, than to do something badly and have them sue you. And again, whether in the end you can prove that you're right and they're not, it still costs you a lot of money. And outplacement services per employee are just so totally inexpensive. And you can, like you guys have an online guide, we both have, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I do, they're now all video workshops, but, group or a combination, a company, you can have certain things be grouped by Zoom or a webinar. You can have some one-on-one time, and you can have some other resources, whether it be workbooks or something, other online, and you can package, you can come up with a budget and that you can afford. It's going to be way less than your budget for legal fees, and easily get help for your employees. And we can actually help them. We can actually make sure they get new jobs quickly, even in a bad environment. That definitely helps them, but it also makes them feel a lot better about you. And it's just a simple choice. I mean, do you buy a new car battery when you need one, or do you wait and have to replace the car because or do you get an engine checkup? If you pass all those, and you don't want to pay the money year after year after year, but in 4 or 5 years, if you have to replace your whole engine or your whole car, then you go, oh, I should have paid for those checkups. So it's the same kind of thing. It's principle. Like healthcare. It's like preventive healthcare, and that's what this is. I mean, it is. It's a lot of things in one. But if you're looking at litigation expenses, then that's what you're talking about.
I agree. There's 2 other factors when looking to make a business case for outplacement or providing job search support to your employees. And one is pretty easy to calculate, and that's the reduction in your state unemployment taxes. We know that an employer's state employment taxes are verifiably reduced when companies offer career transition support. The longer a former employee remains jobless, the greater it is the expense to an employer. And that ROI calculator that I was mentioning earlier, that's exactly how you can figure it out. You take your total number of employees, you take the number of transitioning employees, you are able to enter what your annual mean salary is, then you'll calculate the state unemployment benefits. There's a number that is pretty standard as far as each state, and then your unemployment wage base. And so what you're looking at here is the potential savings across the board. So this is litigation, mitigating litigation. It is decreasing turnover. It is decreasing voluntary turnover. and it is lowering state unemployment taxes. When you look at all those together, this is why these numbers are almost too big for me to say out loud. Because we use the most conservative calculations in our methodology. We also validated it with multiple studies. But the potential savings here is upwards of $500,000 for just 25 transitioning employees.
And in Texas, I mean, there are plenty of other states where those numbers are a lot higher. Yes.
That's exactly right. So I know that we also want to talk about the other piece of a good outplacement package. And then I'm going to stop showing my screen, and I want to hear your take on putting all these pieces together in an effective way for an organization. So the phase 4 of an effective outplacement program also supports your mid-level to your senior employees in their career pathing. So beyond job search, job skills, interview skills, and the emotions of navigating unemployment, your mid-level to senior level are also going to benefit and be grateful for more strategic career management type support. So this looks like career pathing, helping them with mindset around salary negotiations, helping them with one-on-one coaching, usually through that next phase into that next role, or even being strategic about their interviews and how they come to the interview prepared to say, these are my first 30 goals if I'm hired for this position. And then mapping their career goals over time. That's the sort of the bookend that takes them through, oh my gosh, what has just happened? I didn't see that coming, all the way to, wow, this is a pretty awesome opportunity that I've been provided. And those emotions from, holy cow, I never thought my company would do this to me. Why did I get let go and that other person get to stay? All the way through, wow, they cared enough about me to help me manage my career, even though I may not ever work for them again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're totally right, and that's an extra step that a lot of companies don't pursue. They're usually focused on the job search skills, and that's also what the employee is focused on. They're focused on getting a new job, but I think that it goes the extra mile, so to speak, to be able to provide those career services. And the salary negotiations, the leadership coaching, and how to manage your career going forward. I know a lot of people use the time when they're laid off to say, okay, maybe this is a time when I should try something different. This is a time when I should, when I really want to, it's a sort of a jumping off point to reevaluate their careers. I've heard that over and over and over again, and many of them don't reevaluate. They go, they end up in a similar role. But it's a good time to take stock, so to speak, of what you have to offer. And if a company provides assistance with coaching for them to be able to do that, then that's a really good benefit for those employees, because then everything we said before about the warm feeling and the positive feelings they have about your company just increase.
Yes.
All the more. And you know what? That it can come back, because sometimes, you may end up rehiring them, not, either right away or not right away. It could be another time, and you've invested in them. And so you're going to think, if they're going to think highly of you, and if you have a good opportunity, then they'll be receptive to coming back, as opposed to if you didn't. They realize what the benefits of those services that you gave them. I mean, that's really a good thing to do. And I think that goes to one of my things that I wanted to talk about, is that companies, I have clients who are providing outplacement services as part of their standard benefits package.
That's right.
And I think that, it's a long time in coming, and I know a lot of people listening will probably say, what? And, why do I want to talk to them about outplacement when they just start? I don't want, and so the thing is, it's again, like being afraid to look at the truth. Things can happen, and this is, this time when there've been so many layoffs, it's a good time for us to recognize that anything can happen. And, it's an attraction for an employee coming in the door to know that, oh yeah, that they have free gym, they have free lunch, they have, great insurance benefits, but they go, okay, if something does happen, I have some help on the way out. And that it's extremely critical now, because every employee realizes that it could happen no matter what company they work for, no matter what their role is. They could end up losing their job, and they're more likely to accept a job with you if they know up front that you'll help them if that occasion occurs. And then again, that helps with the legal fees and everything down the line.
Agreed. I find that really interesting that we have, frankly, evolved to a place where we can say, the truth is that businesses are changing all the time. And our marketplace is changing, and businesses have, the ones that are going to survive have to be agile enough to adapt to the marketplace, whether that be cutting costs or changing their products entirely. We've certainly seen a number of clients who have had to pivot away from widget A into service B in a matter of 6 weeks in order to, hey, we're either going to close up shop or we're going to sell something else. And many of them are rallying and attempting. And I don't think it's realistic for us as a society to expect that because I've been hired, I am now guaranteed employment for an indefinite amount of time, no matter what the marketplace does. And it seems to me that when hiring managers put this as a part of their package, it's acknowledging through innovation, changes in the marketplace, or a mismatch between us, we still want to take care of you.
Yeah, stuff happens. And again, this is a time period where people get it, so I think we're going to see a lot more of this going on. I mean, this period of great uncertainty has affected everybody. So it's all the more reason to be able to offer that as an enticement when you want to rehire.
So you and I have kind of drank the Kool-Aid a little bit. We've seen how it impacts organizations. If someone was looking to really dig into the numbers and make the case for outplacement, what are the first couple of steps that they need to take?
They need to know what their hiring costs are. They need to know what all their costs, employee-related costs are, and frankly, and be able to break them down. I think you've given them a start with your calculators. It may not be exact and it may not be scientific, but it gives people a good place to look to say, okay, this is how much it costs me to hire someone, and this is how much it costs me to get that person up to speed, and this is how much it costs me when someone leaves on the exit side. And these are, and that's all their costs. It's their salary, it's their benefits, all of their benefits. It's any, legal costs per employee, all your taxes that are employee related. It has to do with your space, your office space, and your technology. So if you have physical space or if everybody is working remotely, you have to provide that employee the means to do their work. So that, the technology to do their work, the physical space to do their work, all of those costs need to be taken into account. And you go, to replace that and start over again with a new employee. So you have to know that many companies don't really can't pinpoint what they spend to hire. They can tell you, okay, I pay my 2 recruiters this amount of money, and here are their benefits, and this is the salary for the employee. But they really don't. They don't know those. So it's hopefully you've got a finance team or something. You just need to start analyzing those numbers, so that you can see what your costs are, and then you can start looking at what the prices are of outplacement services to go. Yes, you could do it internally, but there are experts like us out there, and it's really inexpensive. So you don't even have to get through your entire list of expenses on employee expenses to compare to the pricing that we offer and say, oh, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. I mean,
Even increasing, what we've shared today are the 4 ways in which outplacement has been proven to impact the bottom line. 1, mitigating litigation. 2, taking care of the retained employees mentally, physically, so that they don't want to leave the organization. So lowering the impact costs of voluntary turnover.
And that their productivity remains high.
Thank you. And that their productivity, they're still engaged and, productive. Then, of course, there's lower state unemployment taxes. And then, of course, there's the brand management around when you are ready to hire. If you haven't managed your brand and out there, you've got a bunch of 1 stars, it's going to impact the bottom line, whether or not you can get the high performers you really want and need.
And whether you can sell your goods and services.
That's right.
Top line.
We talked about top line and bottom line. So I feel like this is a good place. Where would you, so how does someone get a hold of you, Mauri? And under what circumstances does someone reach out?
Okay, great. Well, it's really easy to get a hold of me. My name is Mauri. It's Mauri at careerinsiders.com. That's careerinsiders.com. So that's how you get in touch with me. You can call me too, 415-391-1794. I'll be happy to chat with you. And we can Zoom. We can do this. So you can look at my website, careerinsiders.com. And the services that I offer are all around the job search coaching. So it's helping your employees strategize, helping you help your employees strategize about the direction of their job search, how to put together their marketing collateral, resumes, LinkedIn profiles, how to use strategies to get their foot in the door, that includes the LinkedIn optimization, but it also includes some tricks to, I always say at one point in this process, you're a marketer, and then you become a salesperson, and when you're interviewing, you're selling yourself as well. So those are, I help, and negotiating and starting new jobs. So that's what I help your employees with. I do this for, in group format, and individual one-on-one format, and also some online materials. So most of my companies hire me to do a combination of workshops or webinars similar to this, which are very interactive. And they also have a component that's a follow-on for each employee to get some one-on-one consultation time, because while there are a lot of things that I teach that are common, everybody is different. Even two people with the same job title, may have a little bit different take on, or need to do something a little bit different in their search. So I think it's important to have both of those. Some clients do only the group format. Some clients do only the one-on-one. Usually if it's a small number of employees that had to be laid off, like 1, 2, or 3, then it's all one-on-one. If it's more than that, then it becomes cost effective to have a group format.
Excellent.
Again, it's careerinsiders.com and Mauri at careerinsiders.com.
Perfect. And you can also reach myself and learn more about our outplacement programs by emailing outplacement@turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. And the phone number is 281-469-4244. I can also put you in touch with Mauri at Career Insiders as well. Mauri, as always, thank you, ma'am. I really value your expertise and frankly, just your passion for wanting to help people.
Thank you. Thank you, Anisa. This is always fun. I'll be back again whenever you want me.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and stay safe and healthy.